Aren't you interested in learning breakthrough wealth building strategies, such as how to flip a home in less than 2 weeks using other people's money with no real estate license, or how to build a low-cost home-based business? You can discover how to take passive income from any source and invest it into real estate, stocks, or business to become financially independent investing in any market with Residual Roads Business Institute. Collaborate with Andre and other Residual Roads advisors to create a free action plan and start implementing strategies today. Go to www.residualroads.com or email info@residualroads.com. Welcome to the Investing Uncensored podcast. You've been searching for different ways to become financially independent or generate passive income to live out your life's purpose as you've seen others do it, but need insight on how. Well, get excited because here you'll discover the tips and resources to fulfill that need. Andre Stewart has spent more than a decade successfully making it happen for himself and others. This is the Investing Uncensored podcast. And now here's your host, Andre Stewart.
Welcome to another episode of Investing Uncensored. I'm your host, Andre Stewart. And today I want to talk to you guys about where we're at in the evolution process of our economy. Because you got to think, in the beginning, we had the agricultural revolution. And then after that, we had the industrial revolution. And right now, I think we're at the technological revolution. Within all of these revolutions, you have certain economies. And so when you look back at the plantation economy, it obviously was kind of in line with the agricultural revolution. And so now we're into a phase where I call the innovation economy because we're in the information age. Anything you can think of, there's somebody or some platform that has an answer. It doesn't matter if you need help fixing your car on like a 1945 Chevy. You can go on YouTube and I guarantee you there's someone on there that has posted a video on fixing something like that. So we're in the age of information, which is great because that should bridge the gap, in my opinion, of inequality, because now almost anybody that has a brain and has any kind of education or studied something or have a skill set, they can go on YouTube, create a channel, they can do a podcast, they can write a book. There's a bunch of different things that people can do in this age. Back in the day, in the agricultural revolution, obviously that was the plantation economy. And we all know what went on back then. You didn't have the resources that you have now. And so as far as bridging that gap of inequality back then, it was way, way harder, almost impossible in comparison to what it is now. So in the information age, and like I said, the innovation economy, there's so many different things that are at our fingertips. But even with that, you're still going to have boom and bust cycles. And if you look at what's going on with Russia, in the Ukraine, and basically we're going to, in my opinion, be in war by Friday. And understanding where we're at in this phase of our economy is going to help you out in terms of investing. And anytime you have a war, it obviously costs more money. And if you look at the stock market, if you don't understand, we get most of, not even us, the world in general gets most of our energy sources from Russia. And we're talking about slapping sanctions on them and different things like that. That's obviously going to affect what's going on in our economy. It's funny that the narrative kind of has shifted from talking about inflation and we're talking about this war in Ukraine. And it's like a diversion, in my opinion, to get people off track with what's going on in the cycle that we're in. And a lot of people are going to get wiped out. That's why I mean, we're being in an information age. And being able to have all this access at our fingertips, no one's really using it. We're still getting distracted. And I think in this next collapse, because we're going to have a recession or a depression, like I keep saying, I think it's going to be worse because no one's paying attention. And the reason why I want to talk about where we're at in this cycle is because of the information age and the technology, it's going to make this next crash worse than any other crash we've ever had because there's not a buffer. Before you would have to go on TV or catch the newspaper to see what was going on, and it probably didn't even make the newspaper. You probably had to wait for it to come out on the news. And with that buffer or that lag, you didn't have people being able to make a run on banks that fast. It wouldn't happen like that. I mean, with technology right now, people are planning. I know in California they are. What stores to hit? You know what I mean? I forgot what it's called. But they were planning smash and grab. So that somebody might just go on Twitter and post like, "Hey, we're gonna be at Dillard's or Macy's at 5 o'clock on Friday," and then people just show up there and start robbing Dillard's. Or like when the whole Capitol riot thing, they posted it on Facebook or social media. They were all gonna riot the Capitol. So with this technological boom we have, it's going to be real bad because anybody at the bank, if there's about to be on a run on the bank or anything that's going on that will be detrimental to any kind of institution or bank or the economy, is known in a split second. So if someone's going to do a run on the bank, or if a bank is about to close and one of the employees goes out there and tweets, "Hey, this branch is closing," or "I can't believe my branch is closing." People see that on Twitter or wherever they see it at, or on Instagram. Immediately there's going to be a run on the bank. So different things like this in this era, like social media, is going to make this 10 times worse. And so that's kind of what I want people to understand. All the boom and bust cycles that we've had before, we've never had information and technology at our fingertips the way we have it right now. I don't even have to go in the bank. I can do wires from my computer to get my money out of the bank. So if anything happens or anything hits and it goes on Twitter, it's going viral. I mean, someone's going to create a meme about it or something. It's just going to be so different than any other cycle we have. And you always have a boom and bust cycle in any revolution. That's just how they go. You know what I mean? In any state of an economy, you have these cycles because they're created by the government. That's what I want to say. We're trying to stimulate the economy and redistribution. This is kind of what happens with that. And so I just want people to understand, I think now more than ever, people should be investing in commodities, hard assets, because even if they do go down in this cycle, they have real value. So if you look at what's going on in the Ukraine with Russia, back to the whole energy thing, because if they go to war with Ukraine, then we're going to war with Russia. We don't want to go to war with Russia. But in this particular case, they have deployed over 190,000 troops. I think their entire military is 400, almost 500,000 people. If they deployed 190,000 people, this is not an exercise. Like, this is happening. And then I see the president of Ukraine said, "We believe in diplomacy, but we're not scared of anyone." So he's basically taunting, Putin, which I think that's he's not a punk. I like that. I'm cool with that. But you know what? I don't think that made Putin be like, "You know what? Maybe not." But he was going to do it anyway. If he deployed 190,000 troops, it was happening. But anyway, if we go to war, which I think we will by the end of the week, oil prices are going to go through the roof because they're the main supplier globally. And so that's why I think they don't really care, because they're like, "Man, look, we can shut this down. Y'all can hit us with sanctions, and then you guys are not going to have any energy, and you're going to have to figure it out." China's already in a situation where they don't have enough energy. They're trying to turn on all of their coal places to, start burning coal, which is really, really bad for the economy. I mean, for the climate, but they need to stimulate their economy. So they're going to turn on, getting their coal mines going again. So we're going to have to get our energy from somewhere if we go to war with Russia, because that's basically what's about to happen. Biden keeps threatening sanctions and things like that. So back to it, commodities is where you guys should be getting. Gold is another place where you guys should be getting, because despite what is going on right now and them trying to distract us from inflation, which is really bad and is going to continue to spiral, we're now going to war. And if you follow what's going on in the economy, we're already in an energy crisis. And I know Russia knows that. So what would be a better time than now, while all of the global economies are weak? For one, we are weak, but we're at an energy deficit. So, they kind of have control. So what would be a better time to strike when we're at an energy deficit globally? They got, provide most of the energy for the world. Yeah, I mean, why not? So that's why I think it's going to happen. But with that, that would be a great place to invest. And so when this war happens, which again, I don't know, but this is just me trying to, be realistic about the situation and reading what people are saying and reading what Putin is saying and what they're doing as far as declaring their independence with the Ukraine. You know what I mean? It's all signs lead to this. I got a couple friends who are in the military who are over there like, you know what? We just waiting to see what Putin does. Like, they're already deployed. They're already geared up to get ready to go. And that doesn't really happen if they're doing an exercise. So we all know it's going to happen. But all of this information is going to get out. But once we go to war, with technology being what it is, and everybody and their mama's on Robinhood, a lot of people got Twitter. Almost everybody has Instagram. When stuff starts hitting the fan, back in the day, it would have to wait. It would have to wait until the next morning when the stock market would crash. Right now, you can go online and go on CNBC overnight and you can see oil prices starting to move and things like that. You got the crypto market. All of these things are going to be affected. And that's why I think in the access for people to be able to get their money out of banks or out of the country or wherever they got to go, it's crazy. I mean, I wire money to Colombia from my computer. So I can easily get my money out of the country if something were to happen. And because of this, I think we're in for a rude awakening. And so I think hard assets is where we need to be. I think if you can go and buy gold has gone up in price. When it was 1,700, I kept saying people should buy, commodities, precious metals. If you can't do it, I would invest in gold stocks. But I definitely think because we're in the information age, it's going to be way more detrimental than this would have been maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, because Twitter and all these other things just got popular not too long ago. But like I was saying, when everyone can see that the stock market's crashing, and right now more than ever, everybody is trying to be in real estate, everybody's trying to be in stocks, everybody's trying to be in cryptocurrencies, everybody's trying to get in everything. And this is why I think this is going to be real bad, because people are going to, for one, get wiped out. Because if you started investing within the last 2 years, whether it be stocks, crypto, or real estate, your perception or education on these, it could be great, but you have no experience in trading in a regular market. You have no experience investing in real estate. You don't have any experience in investing in cryptos outside of a market that was propped up by the government that just was been on a euphoric rise. Nothing like this has ever happened before. So anyone that got into any type of investing in the last 2 years, they don't have a foundation of what it's like to trade in a regular economy. If you invested in real estate prior to this, you know how to, I would say, appropriately invest in a regular economy. But what's coming, which is going to be a severe downturn, in my opinion, I think it's even going to be harder for people who didn't, invest in like 2008. They didn't know when to jump out. So if you kind of got in a stable market and you don't follow the economy, you're not going to really know when you should exit because you haven't had any experience in knowing when to exit. Like you hopped in, if you got in 2018 and 19, prices were steady. There wasn't a severe decline. You know what I mean? Prices were going up like they would in the average economy. But like I said, if you got in the past couple of years, you have no idea how to navigate this market. You could read and, watch a bunch of YouTube videos and things like that. It could help you a little bit, but I don't think there's any better experience other than experience itself. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. I think it's way better to learn on the job because all of these things are going to have a correction. And the funny thing with all of this, I was having a conversation a couple of days in a row with people about the velocity of money has slowed down significantly in the economy. And so with that being the case, we're really not really getting the full effects of inflation because inflation is money is money supply. It's too much money supply in the economy. Right now, we don't have that situation. We have a supply and demand issue, which if there's one TV and 10 people want TVs, I can jack the price of my TV up and somebody's going to buy it. That's the issue we have right now. So that's why some of these things are higher because there's a supply shortage. So there's an inflation in these things because there's not enough of it. There's not really inflation floating around in the economy as a whole because the people that got these stimulus checks a lot of this money is ran out, or it's in savings account, and people aren't really spending. A lot of it is gone because credit card debt is at an all-time high, and things have gone up in price. You know what I mean? Which is some of that money is gone to that because I think the average household income is up $247 to $300. What they say based on the CPI, but if the CPI, the actual CPI is around 18 or 19%, then people are looking at an additional $700 to $800 to $1,000 a month in reality. So some of that money that was handed out, over the past couple of years, it is gone. But there is not a lot of money. And so if you understand what inflation is how much money is circulating through the economy. And right now, there's not a lot of money circulating through the economy because the velocity is almost zero. So what will happen when people start really getting back and spending money? That's when we're going to hit this hyperinflation that so many people have talked about. So you can say that we're there right now, and this is without people really, really spending money in the market. This is people spending money on assets that are overly priced. This is not like 330 million people out in the market spending a lot of money, because that would be look at the velocity of money, because I can sit here and explain it to you, but for you to be able to see what $1 turns into and see how it goes from this person to this person to this person to this person, how fast does it go, and how many more dollars comes into the economy based on that $1. That's what's not happening right now, because no businesses, or well, a lot of businesses have closed, and then a lot of people haven't been going out because of the pandemic. If this was an actual regular economy and they printed all that money that they did and they were spending it, the velocity of money would be insane right now, because a lot of, again, people had money, but people are not out and about like they were in a regular economy. I mean, I haven't been to the movies. I haven't really went out to eat. I've only, basically went to the gym, and I've traveled to other countries and things like that, but I'm not actively going out like I would go to a restaurant. A lot of people aren't doing that. So if we did that, that $1 that I spent would probably go to the next person, and then that guy would go to the next person, which might be the supplier, or the wholesaler, and then that would go to the manufacturer. That my $1 would go to, probably circle through the economy 5 times, and that is the velocity of money. But at this case, where we're at in the economy, it's like it's going from me to this one business, and then one other business, and then it's done. So there's not, it's the velocity of money is not that high right now, because we were in a pandemic and because there is a supply shortage. Once all of these different things work themselves out, the velocity of money is going to pick up, and that inflation is going to kick up, especially if they don't correct this supply and demand issue. You know what I mean? So that's the velocity of money, and it's very slow right now based on what I just said. So that's why people are saying we're in hyperinflation, or we're going to see hyperinflation. I mean, we potentially could if they don't raise these rates, which I think they're going to do it. And if they don't do it, they're probably going to blame it on what's going on with the war or whatever the case is. But I don't think we're in a position, because our debt's so high, to not be able to raise rates. And I think also, if we don't raise rates, the economy, well, not the economy, the stock market is going to tank, because they're thinking the Fed doesn't have a handle on what's going on. But back to what I was saying about, understanding where we're at in this cycle, that's very important to understand what I'm saying, because it'll allow you to prepare yourself. Because I keep giving you guys, I kept saying the economy has a lag. Given the amount of time that we have, given that the pandemic is starting to cease, more people are talking about it, more mandates are coming down. A lot of people are going to start to get back to normal, and a lot of people are going to start spending more money. And so that's when we're going to see the velocity of money pick up, and that's where we're going to see the inflation really kick in. And so that's why I keep saying to you guys, by June or July, is going to be a different economy. And so that's why if he doesn't raise rates within the next couple weeks, that supply and demand issue, it could get worse. I'm going to say it's going to get worse, because we still don't have people going back to work. I think they're going to have to somehow force the economy to, go back to normal by raising rates and pulling money out of the system, or crashing assets, which is going to make people go back to work, which should help with the supply and demand issue, because they're going to be more workers being able to produce more things, will decrease the issue of not having enough supply. So that's why I think they got to come out and do something, because if us having the demand shortage with life going back to normal, then we will really see hyperinflation. Right now we have inflation, like I said, in certain assets and certain things because there's a shortage, but we'll definitely know, or you're definitely going to feel it when the economy goes back to normal. And so what I think they're trying to do is, obviously, they know like I said, the economy has a leg. You're going to keep hearing me say that. Obviously, when school's out and there's no mask mandates and it's the summertime, people are going to start traveling. People are going to start taking trips. People are going to start living again because there are no mask mandates. People might still be taking tests and things like that, but it's going to be back to normal. And that's where we're going to see the velocity of money pick up. And if the Fed raises rates in March and then they raise it again in June, that'll be helpful for when the summertime hits, because it could curtail what could potentially happen then, because again, it'll help with that lag.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I could get into real estate investing? You can change this as quickly or as slowly as you want to now. Imagine yourself networking and making new connections in real estate globally, or buying an investment property in a market or country that fits your needs. People do. They know what I'm talking about, and now you can too with InvestFar. Connect and join the network. Remote investing made safe and easy.
With that being said, it'll be a while before we catch up. So understanding where we're at in this economic cycle, I think we're at I don't want to say the peak, we're almost at the euphoric phase. In the euphoric phase in the economic cycle of a boom and bust cycle is like when you get to the peak, that's when all of the assets, or that's when everybody and their mama is investing in real estate, investing in stocks, investing in general. When we're at that peak, that's when everybody is now trying to get in on asset prices. And that's when we're like, it's time to get out, because on the other side of this, there's going to be a huge downturn, and then we're going to head back to the bottom into a recession. And so where I think we're at in this phase, I mean, that recession that we had back in 2020 was the fastest recession in history. It technically wasn't even a recession. So we're overdue what was supposed to happen anyway. But with the 2020 whole thing in 2020, that was like, technically wasn't a recession. So we have to have a real recession. And so now, with the government printing money, they stopped it from happening. And so they put everyone got all this money, and they got us to, because it happens in phases. It normally goes over a couple of years. But with that recession, it was probably like, I don't know, a month. And then from that point, we kind of just went to that peak at the top of the cycle very, very fast. And so now we got to come back down in this cycle. So understanding where we're at, then you need to know where to invest. And so that's why you kind of get into commodities. And I'm going to keep saying that. You guys should try to get in gold. And I would definitely get into oil. Oil and gas would be perfect right now, because I really, like I said, I really think we're about to go to war with Russia. And if that happens, we're going to be squeezed tight. We're going to be squeezed tight on energy. Where are we going to get it from? We're going to have to figure that out. And there's not a lot of places that produce as much energy for the world as Russia does. So if we're all fighting for energy right now, we're going to be even more fighting for it in the next couple of weeks if something happens. So I would get into that, because these people or these producers are going to have to turn it on. You know what I mean? The U.S. hasn't really been pumping out oil as much. You know what I mean? We had agreement back when Trump was president where we were responsible. We didn't have to, get energy from anybody. I forgot what it's called, but we had our own, we were our own energy source. And then when Biden came in, he shut it down, and then we happened to start getting energy from other places. With what is going to happen, we're gonna have to get energy from ourselves again, and we're gonna have to maybe supply it to other countries, and vice versa. And that's gonna put a squeeze on a lot of these companies to produce. And with that is obviously going to bring more profit. So I think we should get on oil and gas for sure. That's a definite. And in the next couple of years, I mean, I remember when I got in oil at $35 a barrel. This is when it first dropped in 2020. I got in. Oil was negative. I swear I got in at like $35. It dropped to $34. I got in. And then I rode it all the way up to where it is right now. And even back then, it's hit every target so far. And I think oil is probably going to go to $400 a barrel, especially if we go through the phase of what we're going through with Russia. And if we go to war with them, who knows how long these sanctions are going to last. So it's definitely a good spot. And gold typically goes hand in hand with oil. So if oil rises, then gold's going to rise right along with it. It's going to lag. Either or. It's going to either lag or it's going to be the leader. But oil and gold are the two things that I'll be investing in right now. And then if you look at the price of gold, it went from 1780, which was, hanging out there for like last year and a half. And now it's at 19 and it's going even higher, especially considering where we're at in the cycle. If, again, we hit the summertime and there's no mandates in place and life is normal, yeah, it's going through the roof. We should see hyperinflation at that point in time because I don't think the Feds can raise rates fast enough, because if you try to do a whole, point jump right now, that's definitely going to crash the economy because, again, we're so leveraged in debt. So if you think about it, if you have a credit card and your interest rate was at like, let's say 20%, and you over your credit card limit by, $100 or $200, and your credit card limit can't be raised anymore because you're at your limit and your interest rate was, 20%. And so now it's going to go from 20 to 21%. If you couldn't pay the debt down before when it was at 20% and you were already over on your credit card, what do you think that additional 1% is going to do to your monthly payment? It's going to bring it up even higher. So what do you think is going to happen? And so that's kind of where we're at. We're our debt's so high, we can't add on any more basis points. You know what I mean? They can try to do 0.2 or 0.5. They're trying to get to 1% by the end of the year, but that's almost impossible based on what I just said. We don't have enough money to service our debt right now. We're definitely not going to have enough money if they raise interest rates. It's already not even possible. So they can try to do what they're going to do, but it's not going to work. And so that's why, we keep saying that the Fed is in a rock and a hard place, because you're damn if you do, you're damn if you don't. And so that's why I'm trying to tell you guys we're at this phase of where you need to be getting into real assets. And I think commodities is where it's at, because we're also in a food shortage. So what do you think that's going to do to corn, wheat, soy? It's gonna drive the price up on all of that stuff. And energy and precious metals, wheat, all these commodities, they all go hand in hand. So once one runs, they all run. It's just like the leverage is what you kind of want to get. If you want to play it safe, you can invest in all of them, honestly. They're all commodities. But if you want to, diversify, then you kind of get in oil, because its leverage has better leverage than soybean and corn, that's for sure. That's going to go on and run faster than any of those. But those are all safe. And they'll go up in small increments. So you can have a, stable and safe portfolio. And you also have things that have more risk, which would be, oil and gold and things like that have more leverage and they'll run a lot faster. But nonetheless, I'm telling you guys, I think we're in for a different surprise. People want to say, oh, well, I made it through the Great Depression. Or if they made it through the Great Depression, we can too. But yeah, back during the Great Depression, they weren't in, $30 trillion worth of debt. And the global debt wasn't $226 trillion. So that's the difference that I don't think people are taking in consideration. Also, back then, it didn't cost $200,000-$300,000 to buy a house. It didn't cost $3 or $4 to buy a loaf of bread. And then inflation was also not as significant as it is right now. So I think people are trying to compare eras, and that's like, people are still trying to compare Jordan to Kobe and Jordan to LeBron. It's like, stop doing the comparison, man. It's two different eras, and both of them are great people. It's like you're trying to compare the Great Depression to this new Great Depression that's coming, and it's like they're both great, or they're both gonna be great. So it's like, don't do it. But anyway, guys, man, again, I just want to come on here and just brain dump, because I'm looking at what's going on and what's transpiring in Europe, and I'm looking at what's going on in our economy and what's been going on for the past couple months. And it's like, it's still an energy crisis. It's still kind of wintertime for certain places. It's still really cold in certain places, and people need heat. they need to, do stuff to warm their house and stuff and things like that. It's like, I don't think people really understand what's going on in the world. And this next crisis is going to be a global thing. It's not so centralized to just your country. I mean, if that was the case, if Russia and what was going on with the Ukraine was just a European thing, the U.S. wouldn't be over there. With the U.S., you know what I mean? But we're all interconnected, especially when it comes to natural resources and things like that. So you guys need to start, following what's going on in the world versus just trying to follow what's going on in just your country, because we're all affected by what everyone does. You know what I mean? Whatever happens, we're all affected by it in some way, especially when it's two Western countries. If there's something that's going on in Latin America, we obviously wouldn't be affected by it as much as we are with what's going on in Europe, because we're basically one and the same. You know what I mean? We're Western countries and we rely on each other a lot. So whatever happens over there, we're going to feel it too. So you guys need to follow the world news. Go on the BBC network, watch what they got going on, follow Bloomberg, you know what I mean? Not just CNBC, but look at global and world news and see what's going on, because we're all going to be affected by it. But anyway, man, I keep stressing this. If you go back and listen to all my podcasts, even the ones back in 2020, I kept talking about commodities, and I've did well with that. But it's even more important now that you guys, get into commodities, just because it's an easy play. If you want to get into something that you can just ride up to the top, like I did in 2020, or like most people did when you didn't have to worry about what to invest in, then it would be commodities. Especially at this point in time in the cycle, you don't even have to think about what it is, because commodities were so beaten up and undervalued because so many people were focused on tech for the past 10 years because of the easy money policies. They were getting money for free. Basically, there was 0% interest on a lot of stuff. They were just getting money and borrowing money. So that's why tech was on a run that it was on for so many years. But now that easy money policy is coming to an end, now people are going to rotate back to value into commodities, which they're, like I said, they're hard assets. And if you want to ride something up without really thinking about it, then I would get into gold because it was beating up, oil because it was beating up, commodities were at their all-time lows. So uranium, I would get in there, because if we're talking about doing green energy, we're going to need that. And in order for you to get green energy going, you got to use oil to use the machines that they currently are using right now to try to bring on green energy, right? I mean, there's oil in everything. There's oil in makeup, things like that. So it ain't really going anywhere. But anyway, I'm just trying to get you guys to invest in things that you really don't got to think of based on where we're at right now in the cycle. So if you want to ride something up, look up palladium, platinum. This is not investment advice, but I'm just giving you different things as far as precious metals or commodities that you can just ride up and not really have to worry about trading, even on a down day. Because even on a down day, these assets are still so badly beaten up that it won't even matter what happens on a down day. It might dip, $2 or $3, but at the end, in the next, like I said, 3 to 5 to even, maybe even 10 years, you guys can benefit from the next commodity super cycle, which is what we're in right now. So guys, look up commodity super cycle, Google it, because I believe, and along with a lot of other people who invest in commodities, think that's where we're at in the cycle. So look that up, but get into commodities as much as you can. The things that you just day to day use on a regular basis, like you use oil to drive your car, you use heat and gas to maybe power your oven and heat your house. I would even invest in water. I mean, we all have been in a water shortage for a while too. I mean, the whole West Coast has been in a drought. So look on a heat map, not a heat map, but look on droughts on the West Coast, and there's a heat map that shows you how bad and where the states are that are dehydrated the most, and you'll see how much of a water shortage we're in. So look that up. Antamero Stream, I think his AM is a ticker symbol. But anyway, guys, trust me when I'm telling you, if you want to get into something that you don't have to think about, then just do your research on commodities. I keep pushing it. I keep saying it on every podcast that I do, because that's where we're at in this economic cycle. Just be prepared for, based on, us being in the information age, know that it's going to be a worse than any kind of collapse that we've ever had, because if it's as bad as what it could be because of our debt levels and the easy money policies having to come to an end, it could be really bad. And, keep your ears to the streets when it comes to social media, because that's where you're going to find out first. And it's good and bad because I'd rather be the first to know versus catching it on the news by the time it's going to be too late, right? So I want to be ahead of it and have my money out of here, or have bought gold, or have, went to the safety box, or whatever I got to do to make sure that I'm prepared. One thing that I always say about being in the innovation economy is that I always compare the plantation economy and the innovation economy as one and the same. Because, like, if you look at the plantation economy, that was back when slavery, that was in the agricultural revolution, when people came over from Europe and they came to the US, do all of that kind of stuff like that. Slavery back in the day was people were debt slaves. So the people that came over from Europe came to the US because the people that were here, the work was so much in the agricultural revolution that people were dying off because it was too much work and they just didn't have it. They didn't have it. They weren't used to the climate over here and all of these different things that are different from Europe when they came over here. So people started dying. And so a lot of people from Europe didn't want to come to the US because they were like, nah, man, I'm not going over there. People over there dying, just trying to work. It's like you going to Costa Rica and it's a new place and you want to go over there. You want to go to Costa Rica and people are like over there trying to work and build a life for themselves and they're dying because of the climate, because of the working conditions are too harsh. Would you go to Costa Rica? You probably would. So people from Europe would come to the US because it was trying to create a better life for them. So they would come over here, and once they get here, say your plane ticket to Costa Rica was $500. You paid it off through working in the farms for the people that were already here that owned the agriculture. So you became a debt slave to the person who owned the land in the US. So people would get a ride over here on their boat, come over here and work for these different places to work out their debt. So they were debt slaves. That's kind of how slavery started. It was people coming over from Europe when they found the US and they came here and they worked out their trip through working on the farms and building out the agricultural revolution. And so then with that happening, obviously we went and got slaves from Africa and they came over. I'm not about to go through this whole slavery thing. I wrote a book called Escape the Entrapment of Debt. I'll break all of that stuff down in there. That's coming out after this book next month called The Real Estate Investing Guide. So be on the lookout for that book as well. But in that book, I break down debt slavery and that people were debt slaves. That's how slavery came about, because people were coming over and they're working off their debt. Even the initial slaves that came over here, they weren't even slaves. They came over here, obviously kind of forced, but when they got here, they weren't slaves. So they came over here and they worked off their debt and they were able to move on. And so the plantation economy kicked in. And that's when anybody who owed a debt to someone, they became property to the debt holder. So if you were a slave or a person who came over here and you owed money to, let's say, John, if you owed John money for your trip over here, or if you owed, John money from your room and board for you coming over from Africa, you now became property to John. And that's how people became slaves. They were slaves through debt. And they passed a law, I forgot what exactly it was, where they made people property based on the amount of debt they had to the debt holder. And so, the debt holder, correct. And so then that's how slavery started. And so now I think the same thing goes along with what's going on right now. A lot of people are debt slaves. So I always say the plantation economy was innovated, right? And so that's why we got the innovation economy, because back then, the people that owned their plantations, they had the people working for them because they had to pay off their debt. If you're a person now who have debt, you're a slave to somebody. You're a slave to whatever corporation you work for. You're a slave to Amex. You're a slave to whoever you owe this debt to. Because if you stop paying their debt, they can basically ruin your life by ruining your credit or different things like that. So the quickest way for you to get out of the system is for you to pay off your debt. And that's kind of how it was. And some people would try to run away from their debt back in the day. This is before. This is when people were property. They tried to run away, and, you had runaway slaves and things like that. But there was also white people that were trying to run away, and they got caught. It's a long story with all of these different things. But basically what I'm trying to say is I don't think slavery, in my opinion, was abolished. I think it was innovated, and it just became more inclusive with everybody. Because if you have debt, in this day and age, you're a slave to somebody, man. You're a slave to the system of some sort. That's kind of why you got to get out of debt, because if not, you're going to have to work for somebody forever. And you know what I mean? If you don't have any debt at all whatsoever, and you can go work at McDonald's, right? You can go work wherever you want to work, because the amount of money you make is going straight into your pocket. You don't got to pay nobody. Nobody can chase you down. Nobody's looking for you for anything. So you're not a debt to anybody. You're not in nobody's system. There's nothing that can be done to you outside of maybe the police catching you or something like that. But outside of that, you can live life and do whatever you want to do. You're not beholden to anybody. You know what I mean? At that point in time, if you don't have any debt, there's nobody that can come after you for anything like that. So back then, if you worked off your debt to the debt holder, I mean, then you know what I mean? You can go off and go to New Jersey or go wherever you wanted to go. You can even go out if, you could even choose to work for this person to accumulate more money and then buy your own stuff. You could do that back then. And I don't think people understand that. So like right now, we're in this phase, man. We're in this innovation phase of the economy, and the government has basically created so much debt. With 30 trillion in debt, they've basically made almost everyone a slave in a sense, because I don't think people really understand that whenever the government gives you money, it's not free. Nothing in life is free. You think because they gave you $1,200, oh, it's cool. No, you got to pay that back in some form. And if it's not you, it's somebody else out there that got to pay that money back, because all this money is repaid through taxes. So the more debt the government has, the more that the people in the society are going to be slaves. And so that's why I don't think people understand slavery didn't really go anywhere. I mean, they innovated slavery to be all inclusive to everybody as long as you have debt. So in order for you to, to me, be free of slavery is to get out of debt. And you do that through investing, because the amount of money you make is created that way. I mean, when you have a job, your job might give you what, 25 cent, a 50 cent raise? I mean, what's that going to do when inflation is 7.5 percent? You know what I mean? Or the CPI is really, like I said, you always hear me at 19%. What is 50 cent going to do? What is a 0.9% raise going to do? It's not keeping up with the inflation. So I mean, like, as long as you have debt and as long as you have to work for somebody else, then you're going to always be a slave. And that's what I think it is, because people were debt slaves. That's the whole foundation of slavery, you know what I mean, in the first place, because I mean, the U.S. wasn't the first place to have slaves. I mean, we were actually the last place to have slaves. And just over here, it turned out differently because of that law that was passed that made, you know what I mean, the debt holder the owner of the person that owed the debt. You know what I mean? But anyway, guys, understand where we're at in the process of the economy. Make money, get out of debt, do what you want to do. You know what I mean? You don't have to be beholden to anybody. I went off on a real quick rant because I think people need to understand where we're at in this economic cycle and how you can be free of any of your situations. So it won't matter what the government does. I mean, we wouldn't be a slave to what they're doing because we wouldn't have any debt. The government could print however much money they wanted to print. But if you had a job and you didn't have any debt and you were comfortable in the house that you stayed in, your car is paid off, why would you care what they did? It would suck as far as food prices and things like that. But at the end of the day, you can get up and move somewhere else and just go on about your business and not be, in a situation with what the government's doing. So they got us basically all in a trap. And how do you escape the entrapment of debt? And the best way to do that is through investing in assets when they're undervalued and you're not priced out and you don't have to overpay for things and you're not in a situation when they decide to do what they want to do and flip the economy. So guys, go out there, make smart decisions, follow the global news, learn up, research on commodities, research on economics, understanding what's really going on, and understand that war is also not free. What do you think they're going to get the money for to start the war? You know what I mean? Like they know what they're doing. This could be an excuse for them to do whatever they're doing, right? Because they're going to have to borrow money, even though they just passed a budget. I think I think Biden just passed a bill where they dropped $717 billion for a U.S. military budget. I mean, where that money come from, man? It comes from us, man. And the more they print, the more they basically enslave us into the system. So anyway, man, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. Guys, get out there, get these commodities, pay attention to what's going on in Ukraine, and get as much oil and gas as possible in the next couple of weeks, man. And if it doesn't pan out, then, I mean, you still made a good investment because we're still in an energy shortage. So it's going to be good either way. But get in it now So in case anything does happen, you'll be in front of something that might 10x or 50x. So either way go, you're going to be in a win. But anyway, guys, I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye.
Aren't you ready to start a business or grow your real estate investing portfolio? If you answered yes, allow Andre and the expert advisors at the Residual Roads Business Institute to fast track and put you on a path to full-time investing. The greatest transfer of wealth in our lifetime is occurring over the next few years, and you can take advantage if you know what to look for. In order to be successful at real estate investing, you need to learn how to leverage your current resources to generate quick money, big money, and retirement money. Let Residual Roads advisors craft a plan to get you through these phases using little or no money in 6 months or less. Don't wait for a job. Create one for yourself and others. Go to residualroads.com for mentorship, and for our free course, go to residualroads.thinkific.com.